Thank you, Chairman Brewer and members of the Government Committee. I'm Megan Hunt, MEGANHUNT, and today I'm presenting two bills about accountability and integrity for our state officials. Both of the measures I'm presenting today pertain to constitutional officers and are very much related in origin. So in the opening for this bill, I will talk about the background and circumstances that spurred these two bills, and I'll keep my comments on the next bill more brief. For people who, in the public, who might not know what we talk about when we say constitutional officers, the Nebraska Constitution establishes 6 state leadership positions as the executive officers in the state of Nebraska. Those include the governor, lieutenant governor, secretary of state, auditor of public accounts, state treasurer, attorney general, as well as a few constitutional boards and commissions. The need for this bill came to my attention in 2019 when a constituent reached out to my office regarding ads he was seeing from the state treasurer's office that looks like campaign advertisements. Shortly after, the conversation around this really exploded in the press. Many people reached out to me about it in that week after the news article came out from the Omaha World-Herald, which shed light on some questionable decisions by the treasurer in his first year in office, and I pass that out for all of you. The treasurer's office has a legitimate reason to use advertising, and that's to inform people about the services they manage, such as the state's college savings plans or unclaimed property. The ad in question was ostensibly about their unclaimed property division, but a lot of people I talked to agreed that this ad, which prominently featured Treasurer Murante and his family, looked a lot more like a campaign ad than a public service announcement. Through the World-Herald report, we learned that the treasurer had spent nearly $600,000 of taxpayer money on these ads. Not only that, but the company which Murante hired to produce and place the ads, Victory Enterprises, was one that he used to work for, and it's also the same organization that did his campaign ads when he was running. There was no competitive bidding process followed in the selection of this company. In this bill, LB485, we're dealing with the competitive bidding problem, and in the next bill, I'll address the use of state funds for these ads. Victory Enterprises is not a company that typically works on public service announcements. It's a political consulting firm, one which Murante previously worked for, and some documents found by Common Cause actually had him listed as a director in the past. And it's also the same company that he hired to handle his own campaign ads for his 2018 election that had just recently put him in office. And presumably he could hire them to work on future campaigns. I think all of us can see the potential ethics problems with that. LB 485 would prevent these types of dealings from state officers in the future by requiring that constitutional officers follow the same competitive bidding requirements that state agencies already have to follow. Existing statute requires agencies to go through a public competitive bidding process to contract for any state services that would cost more than $50,000. That law doesn't apply to constitutional officers or the executive branch agencies they lead. In the case of the Murante ads, the treasurer budgeted some $600,000 of state funds for what was an alleged public service campaign for unclaimed property awareness, but he didn't seek any bids for that. Without LB 485, the door continues to be wide open for these officials to give huge taxpayer-funded handouts to their friends, their former employers, or their future campaign consultants without any legal repercussions. I think we can all see that this is an issue of fairness and government transparency and the way we're leaving the door open for the abuse of our system. The last time this bill was heard in 2020, there was no opposition and no neutral testimony, so I'm hoping that will be the case again today. It didn't get a priority last time, but it remains a good governance issue. I'll also note that the last time these bills were heard, Treasurer Murante said he, quote, would be happy to comply with whatever rules the legislature imposes on constitutional officers. Now I'll explain AM 269 to you. AM 269 was filed on the bill well before this hearing in good faith after my staff spoke with the director of the Board of Educational Lands and Funds about a need for them to be exempted from the requirements of the bill. I found their concerns were totally legitimate. The Board of Educational Lands and Funds is a constitutional agency which serves as trustee of the lands contributed to the state in 1867 by the federal government, which is 1.3 million acres leased to farmers and ranchers. As trustee of these lands, it is bound by fiduciary duty to its beneficiaries, the K-12 school children of Nebraska. They work to maximize income of properties through stewardship of the land. Basically, they serve as the owner and manager of this land, collecting rent on 2,300 leases related to agriculture and renewable energy. I wasn't familiar at all with this board previously, so I appreciate that Director Sudbeck took the time to provide this information. The board has 5 members appointed by the governor, and it has its own section of the Constitution. After speaking with the board, we concluded that without this amendment, our bill would be in conflict with that constitutional provision, Article 7-6, as well as the statutes pertaining to them in Chapter 72 of our statutes. In practice, most things that this board deals with has to do with emergencies, like washouts on cropland and well problems and things like that. Under this bill, they would have to go to DAS to get approval to handle emergencies, which would be a barrier to their duty to exponentially manage these things. To my understanding, no other agency has a fiduciary duty in this way. So it's a unique state entity, and they have an obligation to manage the property independently. I have one more comment. I also see we have a little fiscal note for this one. DAS said that they would need another staff person to handle an increased workload of handling the contracting processes. I don't know if I agree with that, but I think that that's reasonable if that's what they think it is. The other piece of it is from the Public Service Commission, who estimates the need for another staff person to handle this as well. And the Public Service Commission also had some concerns about how this would affect their ability to fulfill their responsibilities for the unique services they provide, like the 911 network and natural gas system and telecommunications utilities. So that makes sense to me too. And I also have an amendment, which I just passed out to all of you because we just got it back, that would exempt the Public Service Commission from the requirements of this bill as well. So I appreciate you considering this bill, as well as the amendments to exempt the Public Service Commission and the Board of Educational Lands and Funds. Thank you, colleagues.
Okay, thank you for that opening. Back on the fiscal note, they got the general funds at 131,279, and then below that in other funds, I've got the 103,046. Each one of them represents a new hire that would manage the additional requirements with the law. Is that kind of how that's supposed to?
I think that they're anticipating the extra workload because of reviewing the contracts, but I mean, there might also just not be that many contracts. I don't really know.
Well,
it's going to be that much work.
The total 231,325 seems like a lot, but maybe
I agree with
I need
you.
to figure exactly how to figure that.
I'll go for half
Okay. All right, let's see. Questions? Questions for Senator Hunt on LB485? Yes, Senator Rabel.
Senator Hunt, so these would be contracts that are under the auspices of just the governor, lieutenant governor, secretary of state, auditor, treasurer, attorney general?
Just the constitutional officers, yeah.
So how many contracts are they involved in? I don't know.
We don't know. Yeah.
And then, could you finish what happened to our state treasurer Murante?
Well, I encourage you to read the article. Nothing happened to him. I mean, because nothing illegal happened. But I think that there are probably, well, not illegal, like it's probably an ethical problem to be able to hand really, really lucrative contracts to your friends as a constitutional officer. And whether that's what happened or not, it certainly has the appearance of that. And I think even the appearance of this ethical breach erodes trust in government, and I think we should pass this law to kind of patch up that problem.
And they didn't close the Omaha office?
I don't know right now. I don't know.
Okay.
It might be in the article.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, yes, Senator Conrad.
Thank you so much, Chairman Brewer. Thank you, Senator Hunt, for bringing these measures forward again. I remember some of the public and news articles about some of these issues and some of the public debate. But I know that, for example, Speaker Arch has been pretty clear that he wants to focus a lot of his time in his personal legislative agenda and in his role as Speaker in kind of addressing procurement issues in the state kind of writ large, because seeing that there's a lack of legislative oversight and a lack of uniformity in terms of how we utilize taxpayer-funded dollars for contracts or services, et cetera. So I'm wondering if maybe the time is right to revisit this discussion as perhaps part of that broader umbrella that Speaker Arch is leading. I don't know if you want to respond to that or not.
No, I agree with you. I think that this probably could have been done for a lot less money than $600,000, but maybe it wouldn't have been a company owned by one of Murante's friends. And so, yeah, I think this is one of those perfect examples of a place where money could be saved.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Do you know, if you go through the normal bidding process, is there a required number of bids to move forward with, like, purchasing or contracting a particular activity?
I'm not sure. I don't think so. I would think that the important thing is just that people could bid,
Right.
you know?
So it's competitive.
Yeah.
Okay, other questions? All right,
Thank you.
seeing none.